demonstrate the difference in the setting of the Old West. Consider a lynch mob in a democracy. 35 horseback riders chase one lone gunman. They catch him, and they vote 35-1 to hang him. Democracy has triumphed, and there's one less gunman to contend with. Now consider the same scenario in a republic. The 35 horseback riders catch the gunman and vote 35-1 to hang him, but the sheriff arrives, and he says, "You can't kill him. He's got his right to a fair trial." So they take the gunman back to town. A jury of his peers is selected, and they hear the evidence and the defense, and they decide if he shall hang. Does the jury even decide by majority rule? No, it has to be unanimous, or he goes free. The rights of the gunman aren't subject to majority rule, but to the law. This is the essence of a republic. Many Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution. Nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." Samuel Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt, because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable. In every case, they ended up with mob rule, then anarchy, and finally tyranny under an oligarchy. During that period in Greece, there was a man named Solon, who urged creation of a fixed body of law not subject to majority whims. But where the Greeks never adopted Solon's wise counsel, the Romans did. Based on what they knew of Solon's laws, they created the 12 tables of the Roman law, and in effect built a republic that limited government power and left the people alone. Since government was limited, the people were free to produce, with the understanding that they could keep the fruits of their labor. In time, Rome became wealthy and the envy of the world. In the midst of plenty, however, the Roman people forgot what freedom entailed. They forgot that the essence of freedom is the proper limitation of government. When government power grows, people freedom recedes. Once the Romans dropped their guard, power-seeking politicians began to exceed the powers granted them in the Roman Constitution. Some learned that they could elect politicians who would use government power to take property from some and give it to others. Agriculture subsidies were introduced, followed by housing and welfare programs. Inevitably, taxes rose and controls over the private sector were imposed. Soon, a number of Rome's producers could no longer make ends meet, and they went on the dole. Productivity declined, shortages developed, and mobs began roaming the streets, demanding bread and circuses from the government. Many were induced to trade freedom for security. Eventually, the whole system came crashing down. They went from a republic to a democracy and ended up with an oligarchy under a progression of the Caesars. Thus, democracy itself is not a stable form of government. Instead, it is the gradual transition from limited government to the unlimited rule of an oligarchy. Knowing this, we as Americans are ultimately left with only two choices. We can keep our republic, as Franklin put it, or we will inevitably end up with an oligarchy, a tyranny of the elite.
And I also did want to say that lately I've been kind of negative and focusing on negative things. And I don't really talk about myself personally that much, but I did want to say this just because I thought maybe it might help. And I got a hold of the Info Warrior Manual finally, which is posted up at 12160.org. And it's an excellent read, something that anyone involved in the info war really should take a good look at. And if you're new to this, take a look at it, and maybe it will inspire you to figure out how you could take more action for the sake of humanity, because that's really exactly what's at stake here. It's life and death. This really is no game. And I was kind of been in a negative funk and kind of focusing on what other people are doing, you know, and what I agree with and what I disagree with, and pointing fingers and all, which really does not help the movement at all. And, you know, I read this InfoWars manual, and it was talking about positive vibrations and what we can do positively, and really put things back into perspective for me, to where, you know, I really have no business focusing on what others are doing, you know, figureheads of this movement, the freedom movement. You know, really, what can I do to step up my game? And that's really what having the show go live on Thursdays at stickam/Harry Thomas Show is all about. It is trying to create some kind of interest and some kind of buzz, and give a platform for everybody to be heard. Well, this is the first week and we're still trying things out, so we're going to see how things go. Right now, I'm recording this for the podcast. I can't insert clips or nothing, but they will be inserted later on the podcast. So, I got that InfoWario manual up at the website, harrythomas.info, under the weekly news section for today. And I also want to make an announcement for Fearless Broadcasting, which is 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday nights. And you can find a link to that at harrythomas.info, and also where the site comes from, members of 12160.org, which is an excellent networking site where info warriors can get together and share information and share ideas about how we can defeat the New World Order. And if you don't know what the New World Order is, check out the website. I've got a page up, What is the New World Order? There's excellent information there to set you straight on exactly what we're dealing with here and what we can do about it. And like I said, we got a lot of news to cover today. I want to get right into this. This came out of prisonplanet.com, Tuesday, September 8th, 2009. Charlie Sheen requests a meeting with Obama over the 9/11 cover-up. Actor and television star Charlie Sheen has publicly requested a meeting with President Barack Obama to urge him to reopen the official investigation into 9/11 in light of the fact that the majority of the 9/11 Commission members have now publicly gone on record to express their conviction that the government agreed to lie about the official story. Sheen's request takes the form of a letter to the president in the context of a fictional meeting between the two entitled 20 Minutes with the President, published exclusively on the radio talk show host Alex Jones's Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com websites. And I want to go over them 20 points right now because it is very important. There's thousands of people taking action right now down in New York City to try to get out 9/11 truth. Because really 9/11 is the springboard into all the madness that we see here today with the Patriot Act, with the military training for domestic duties, with Northcom, the whole war on terror, which is a total fraud. And even though it's been 8 years, a lot of people say that's no old news. Well, it isn't old news as long as they continue the agenda of the police state. They're still continuing the agenda of the New World Order. Now, Charlie Sheen wrote down 20 points about 9/11 that he would really like to discuss with the president. And the one is, on the FBI's most wanted list, Osama bin Laden is not charged with the crimes of 9/11. When I called the FBI to ask them why this was the case, they replied, there's not enough evidence to link bin Laden to the crime scene. I later discovered he had never, ever been indicted by the Department of Justice. Number 2, FBI translator Sibel Evans was dismissed and gagged by the Department of Justice after she revealed that the government had foreknowledge of plans to attack American cities using planes and bombs as early as April of 2001. In July of 2009, Ms. Edmonds broke the federal gag order and went public to reveal that Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban were all working for and with the CIA up until the day of 9/11. That's right. Osama bin Laden is a CIA asset. He was trained for the conflict back in Afghanistan with the Russians in the 80s. So he was trained actually in the late 70s. I mean, this is all true facts, and I really beg of you, if you don't believe what I'm saying, to investigate these claims for yourself. Number 3, the following is a quote from Mayor Giuliani during an interview on 9/11 with Peter Jennings for ABC News. "I went down to the scene and we set up headquarters at